Hey you guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven, accompanied by Queen Taylor, and today I got new glasses, so I'm trying them on. So let me know what you think.
Nerdy?
Are they good? Yeah, I really can't see, and I want to get the LASIK surgery where they burn your eyeballs, but it's a lot of money, so I don't want to do it right now. But anyways, why are we here? We're doing What Did the British Ever Do for Us? And this video has been requested a billion times ever since we kind of came back doing YouTube videos. We did America Compared, we did the David Cross video, and we did a couple of other ones, but they're kind of controversial. And I'm hoping maybe this one isn't.
They're not very enjoyable to read the comments in videos like that typically.
Yeah, so we've been kind of shying, but I was like, no way that this is more educational and more informal. I'm thinking maybe this is just going to be good.
Another opportunity for people to tell us how dumb we are.
Now you're being pandemic. Pedantic. Now you're being pedantic.
Pandemic. I will COVID your asses.
That's still not a safe word on YouTube, but yeah. So what did the British ever do for us? I don't know. Taxation without representation, but I digress. Let's hop on over to the video and let's see what you guys did for us. For everybody. I'm just baiting them with that one.
Yeah.
I'm just baiting. I'm over here baiting. I'm a master baiter.
Right, yeah, you sure are.
Yeah, I'm a master baiter.
What did the British, ever do for us scientifically? Nowadays, our education system regards the British as brutal colonists who enslaved populations, subjugated the world. Out of roughly 200 countries in the world today, the Brits colonised, settled or invaded about 90% of them.
Wow.
Which I think is
We knew that.
impressive, or at least I think the Romans would think it was impressive. But would we have been better off without those bastard Brits? Now, as it happens, they may have some redeeming features, if you look at their scientific contribution at least. Now, this is a slightly different video to normal, and I'm going to talk about the British scientific and technological achievements and inventions, even though I could mention trivial things like the British invention of some of the best countries in the world, like Australia, Canada, Singapore, New Zealand, America. Well, maybe not invented, but they were certainly highly influenced. Or even the only decent country in the Middle East, which is Israel, courtesy of Mr. Balfour, and many other countries that have a great deal.
They have a great deal to be proud of. We were British. I don't understand.
Yeah.
We were you leaving you, and you guys didn't want us to leave. I don't know. I don't know. It's like I got an apartment because I moved away from my parents' house, and they didn't want me to move out.
Yeah.
You know?
It's pretty weird.
It's pretty weird.
It's pretty weird, you guys.
To be proud of, such as Malaya, South Africa, Fiji, Kenya, Botswana, Sri Lanka, India, all wonderful British creations. But we're a science channel, and we're going to look at science. Now, the list is long of scientific achievements, and I'm only going to look at the really big ones and some of the more important ones. Let's start.
Okay. British inventions.
Let's start with transport and engines. So the British invented the railways, steel tracks, railway locomotives. In fact, wherever the British went, railways followed. So they put in railways in Germany, India, South America, and of course everybody copied that. Then we have the modern bicycle, initially called the Rover safety bicycle apparently.
Ooh.
Chain drive, caster steering and relatively small wheels, invented by the Rover company. In fact, in Poland the word for bicycle is Rover. And yes, it's the same company that makes Land Rovers.
Oh, very
Now,
cool.
the British
I didn't know
obviously
that.
invented the first engines, which was the steam engine, and that broke us free from back-breaking animal and human-powered devices.
What about the combustion engine? I'm pretty sure Henry Ford did something with the combustion engine. I don't know. And then, so John Rockefeller, you guys might have had trains, but I think we perfected it. Okay, I think John Rockefeller, the richest man in the world at the time, perfected that bad puppy. All right. And bicycles? Schwinn. I'm just kidding. I don't no one cares about bikes. You guys were riding bikes. We were driving Fords, no big deal.
Yeah, bikes are definitely a bigger thing in a lot of other countries. We're just too vast.
Now, while the British were inventing the steam engine, they of course had to invent the piston. And more importantly, the piston ring that seals the piston, a truly remarkable technological invention, which is even now being developed further. And the piston ring is the basis for petrol engines and diesel engines, in fact, virtually every engine. So
I'm so glad we contracted that out to you guys. Let me just tell you, wonderful work. You did great things on our pistons. It's great. Contracted out to the right people. Yep. You guys were like the subcontractors. I get Henry Ford was a smart man. All right. He knew who to call when he had a problem. I like this. It's great.
No grips, no engines. Next, they invented the first engine-powered ships, obviously steam-powered. Ships' propellers, steel ships, the steam turbine, initially for powering ships, but now it powers the generators in every coal electricity generating plant and every nuclear generating plant. So that's about 50% of all the electricity that's generated today.
See, now that's
courtesy
amazing.
of Mr. Parsons. Then we have the jet engine. Yes, the Germans independently invented it in the Second World War. The turboprop engine invented by the Brits.
Hold on, you guys.
Child abduction. Yep.
We're getting an Amber Alert.
Why is mine not going off? Oh, it is. Mine's not making sound though.
Well, my sound's still on.
Yeah, but when my sound's off, it usually still pops up. There's been a lot lately. Miami area, 6-year-old boy.
Oh no.
Missing.
We get these things called Amber Alerts. I don't know if you guys have Amber Alerts or like child abductions. And that's what that was. Anyways, I'm just taking the piss out of the crowd because you guys like to take the piss out of us in the comments. It's all in good fun. It's banter. Don't take it seriously. I don't take myself seriously. Don't take yourself seriously. I know it's bothering Taylor. I know.
Just because I know what the comments are going to be like.
She knows that you guys are going to come in ham. Just know I don't care.
I also know a lot of people seem to dish it but not be able to take it. So
that's the world. That's everybody.
I know.
On the internet. This is actually
looking forward
really cool.
to it.
This is super cool because we'll get into it.
The first turboprop aircraft. So if you don't fly in an airplane powered by a jet engine, which was largely due to the Brits, it's a turboprop airplane, which was invented by the Brits. And of course, the turboprop is the basis of the gas turbine, which is used to generate another 20% of the world's electricity. We also have the modern car layout, front drive, transverse engine, independent suspension, CV joints on the front wheels. Before that, companies tried all sorts of arrangements. So, for example, the Germans famously had the engine and everything at the back.
Yeah.
Since 1959, most cars use the Mini Minor equivalent.
The Mini Minor.
Ever been on a vehicle that uses steel wheels? Pretty uncomfortable. But don't worry, the Brits invented the pneumatic tyre. So it looks like the British have invented pretty much everything that runs on the road.
Hold on.
They didn't invent the road.
I'm trying to remember what it was, but I watched something.
About this?
Not this, but about a guy who invented the material for tires. I watched, I think, like a whole documentary on it.
That's awesome. I'm sure. I mean, I've watched something.
I'm trying to think of what exactly it was, but yeah, I watched this whole thing. All these different things he tested.
Well, when it comes to you, I know it's very difficult on the spot while we're recording to recall things like that. Because I was going to say there was a German that, like, I don't know why my mind thinks about this, but gosh, I did a whole video on YouTube about it. And Sabaton did a music video. Something Fritz, but made the mustard gas. The chlorine gas?
Oh,
Arbor? I don't know why I'm saying this.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one of those things where, like, I'm trying to recall something just to give you an idea of how much pressure it is to actually be recording and trying to think things up like this.
It is a lot. That's why I think certain game shows and stuff where you have to think of something very easy, where it's like, name what? No. No. Name the biggest animal you might find in a forest or something like that. And it'd be like, bear. And people will be like, hedgehog. Because you're so on the spot.
Yeah.
And you have limited, like the time's ticking that you just spout something out. Your mouth goes faster than your brain. It's just the pressure of being like on a time constraint and trying to think of something that, it just kind of makes your mind go blank, and then you panic, and then your mind goes more blank, and it's just the cycle of like,
Now you know what it's like to record a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Let's go. With no scripting, by the way.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Ever been on a vehicle that uses steel wheels? Pretty uncomfortable. But don't worry, the Brits invented the pneumatic tyre.
Is this Dunlap?
So it looks like the British have invented pretty much everything that runs on the road. They didn't invent the road, that's just about it. Well, actually they did. Tarmac roads, or tarmacadam, was invented by a Scot and a Welshman. Then we have steel bridges. And here's a very interesting one, the modern traffic roundabout in the 1960s. Now, you might think that roundabouts have been around since way before the 1960s, but
Thanks, you sons of
yeah,
bitches.
no thanks for those.
Thanks.
Because so many people don't know how to use them, and it is really frustrating.
we're over here implementing roundabouts in all of our cities in America, and they're terrible.
Yeah.
Whenever we have like a new construction, they put in one of those effing roundabouts.
And you know what's really bad is they've got the ones that are just one lane all the way through. We had a lot by our house in Colorado that was 2 lanes all the way through. But then we went on the east coast or the west coast of Florida and went through one that had 3 or 4 lanes. And that's like, that's basically
death.
Say a prayer, tell your loved ones you love them, because
4
you're probably
lanes
gonna die.
in a roundabout. Isn't that insane, you guys?
Like, people don't know how to use a 1-lane one. Why are we sticking a 4-laner in here?
It's crazy.
Not safe.
And then you're just like the one car that doesn't know how to he's
How do
like
I
too
get out of
passive to get over, and this dude's just making laps. It was horrible. Frank
love
Blackmore, thanks, bud. You couldn't just do right or left, you know?
Brits had the inspired idea of changing the rules for the roundabout. In other words, yield to enter, which massively increases the efficiency of the roundabout. Then we have the cat's eye reflector. Caterpillar tracks, which the Brits invented just before they invented the tank.
Nice.
So
What was
there's
that
much
cat's
more
eye
we
thing?
could talk about in terms of transport technology, but we must move on to other industrial and technological stuff. Now, of course, Britain famously started the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th century, and it's debated why it started in the United Kingdom, but clearly there was something special going on that made that spark. And of course, it started in the textile and agricultural industry. In the textiles, they invented the flying shuttle, powered looms, the spinning mill for making threads. In fact, if you didn't have the Brits, you don't have the very fine modern clothing which we have now, which is also incredibly cheap compared with what it used to be. In the agricultural industries, there are all sorts of mechanical devices like the mechanical seed drill, the haymaking threshing machine, but also really important things like phosphate fertilizer production, selective breeding. But that's just the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. If you're going to have an Industrial Revolution, you need a big build buildings. And so the British gave us Portland cement, a revolutionary type
Portland
of cement.
cement.
Where would we be without it? Then we have things like steel boring machines, which led to the modern lathe, which is ubiquitous in metal cutting. Hyper-accurate machines for measuring things, the micrometer, for instance. You cannot have modern engineering unless you have hyperfine methods for measuring things. We have stainless steel, the production of polyethylene, very famous plastic used in just about everything. The steel hammer for forging steel and making it much stronger. Cool. The Bessemer steel process, the first mass production of steel effectively. And then the mass production of glass using the now ubiquitous virtually tin flotation method. All right, let's go a little bit electrical. So the first long-distance communication cables were invented by the Brits, the coaxial cable. This was used for underwater cables to link the UK to America and other places. The first intercontinental communication, the birth of the internet in a sense. It was the first time that we could communicate all around the world. The telephone, Alexander Graham Bell was a Scotsman. The television, liquid crystal, cavity magnetron. You've never heard of the cavity? It's in your microwave. But probably more importantly, the first radars.
It's like he read my face.
The cavity magnetron, which was a revolution. Then if we go a little bit medical, we've got CAT scanners, ultrasound scanners.
Wow.
The first town to have chlorinated water. How about the first electronic programmable computer to crack German codes in the Second World War? Accurate navigation using highly accurate clocks, the chronometers, and the first workable atomic clock.
That's wild.
The World Wide Web, a gas stove, tin cans, and a really big one. I know you've been wondering where I get to this one. An alarm clock that makes tea.
Oh.
Again,
wow.
I could have added many, many more things.
Interesting.
Let's go on to fundamental
Wake up, your tea's ready.
Stuff that all other science and technology actually depends upon. But before we do that, maybe just like and subscribe.
All right.
How about the discovery of the proton, neutron, and electron? The three building blocks of, well, frankly, just about everything. All discovered by Brits. And the Brits also discovered the opposite of matter, which is antimatter, by Paul Dirac. And more recently, the last particle in the standard physics model of just about everything, the Higgs boson, which was proposed by Peter Big.
We just the Higgs boson particle. What's this particle? It's everything. it's a particle. Can you cook it with bacon? No. The Philomena Kunk video is where we've heard of the Higgs boson reference, the God particle.
Very recently, too.
Yeah. Very recently. It's actually funny that this is brought up.
Now let's go a little bit bigger, but not a great deal bigger. The atom. The model of the atom with a hard nucleus with the electrons flying around was essentially discovered by the British. And I'm being a little bit loose there because there is a famous New Zealander involved with this. But frankly, in those days, Kiwis were basically Brits. What about biology? Well, in my view, the two biggest advances in biology were both discovered by Brits. The first one is Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. And then you have the discovery of the structure of DNA at Cambridge University.
I've seen this, yeah.
Fundamental molecular biology, of which the whole DNA revolution has been based on. And yes, I know Watson was an American and Wilkins was a Kiwi. Anyway, of course, the discovery of the structure meant this explosion in growth of the whole DNA industry, effectively, such as DNA fingerprinting, now invented by the Brits. Now let's go back to more basic, very fundamental and possibly more important medicine. We have antiseptics, antibiotics, vaccines, all three invented by Brits. But let's go back to physics now. So we have Newton's laws of motion, Newton's laws of gravity. Where would we be without Sir Isaac Newton? We essentially couldn't predict anything. Back onto the physics, the laws of optics and the way that radio waves travel, light, the laws of electromagnetic propagation in signals and wires, Scotsman James Clerk Maxwell's. You don't have any mobile phones or computers or communication cables without Maxwell.
Yeah.
And then we have electromagnetic induction from Michael Faraday's. If you don't understand...
So that's actually funny because the Faraday cage, so most military installations are or something like that. They have a tempest requirement, which is a Faraday around, and it basically blocks EF from emitting from a certain area, so that because you could broadcast everything, like everything broadcasts data in some way or shape or form. It's just emanating. And I think right now EF is big.
Yeah.
It's super big. And that's a technology that we're like, especially with quantum and quantum computing and dudes, it's pretty Star Wars, it's here. And this is the kind of shit that they're dealing with it. It's super awesome. I'm glad that they mentioned, all this, because it is true.
I'm glad you knew what that was, because I had no idea.
The Faraday cages.
Yeah.
I know, because we spent millions of dollars basically putting up sheathing or shielding into a wall just for that. And they would have EMF meters like checking the decibel ratings of everything to make sure we fit within standard.
It's crazy.
Because there was this guy, these teams that these companies pay, like will sit out in a van and like they have these like high powered, I don't even know what you want to call them. And I'm trying not to like get myself into trouble, but they can like listen straight up, point something to a building and listen to all the conversations, listen to everything.
Like you see in those
spy movies,
older, like spy movies and like certain crime shows where FBI is in the
van,
carpet cleaning van, and they've got that little speakerphone looking thing, and they're like, ooh.
I mean, as silly as it's so funny, because as silly as those TV shows are, they're like, they have this imagination, but the technology that they're using in those TV shows are like 10 years behind what we're actually doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a lot scarier now today.
Oh yeah, I highly believe that.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, look at Israel, boom, on pagers. Just saying. That was a global supply chain attack. That was amazing.
And magnetic
Not in a good way.
induction, there
Not
are
in a
no
good way.
electric motors. There's no electric generators. Basically, the whole backbone of the electricity system, you owe it to the Brits. Or in mathematics, and there are a lot here, so I'm going to pick the really big one, which is the invention of calculus. Yes, there was another guy called Leibniz who also invented it at the same time, but essentially Newtonian calculus is at the basis of a huge amount of advanced science of engineering. It's as fundamental as algebra and arithmetic. Now, this list is not complete. There are literally a zillion other things that the Brits have contributed to. Actually, there is just one more. The Flushing Loo.
The Flushing Loo.
Now, obviously, much of what those British scientists did was based on other scientists from lots of other countries, and the Brits were just part of this magnificent thing which we call Western civilization. Of course, there were French and there were Germans, and the scientific development and advancement then spread to the United States and now to the Far East. But the contribution of the Brits were utterly fundamental on so many levels. Now, without those advancements, our lives would be short, harsh, and frankly, just bloody horrible. The world's population would still be about 1 billion, which is what it was in about 1800, rather than the roughly 8 billion that it is today without that wonderful science and technology. Now, if you add up all the bad things that the Brits may have done, the Amritsar massacre, the Bengal famine, and all the other bad things that happened, albeit only occasionally considering the attitudes of the times. But even if you add all those up, it's not a drop in the bucket compared with what has been achieved and the lives that have saved. How many lives, how many babies, children, were saved by antibiotics and antiseptics, clean water, or the uses of electricity, communications and transport? Famines are effectively a thing of the past because, well, for one reason, we can shift food around from one place to another very, very easily. Now look, it turns out that I was born in England, and even though I'm an Aussie, so I am biased. But I don't think it makes sense to be proud of what your ancestors did or were unless there's some evidence that you carry on those ideas, values and traditions. But even if you don't measure up to those ancestors or other people's ancestors, it's just bad form not to appreciate what those people did for us.
Oh,
The
spot
contribution
on.
of the Brits was truly incredible, and we should all be grateful that they came along and did more than virtually any other group to pull humanity out of the appalling, difficult lives that existed before the 1800s. So, do you think the ledger for those bastard Brits, is it positive or negative?
So it's kind of, I agree with everything at that end statement. And I think that bit that he said about, the Western civilization, they're the start. And it's true. We all kind of derived from, even American, and Americans do recognize and understand this, that we all derived from, the British, right? So the British Empire and everything that it's done, it created the Western civilization. They were the forefront in their start. Now, you could say today, maybe they're not at the height of their glory, or, the stuff that's happened with Brexit and all this other stuff. But if we look back at history, I don't think anyone, shouldn't be proud of what their country has achieved. And I think that's something to be, prideful about. Definitely. I don't think the Germans think World War II, like all the German things that they've done and have accomplished, I don't think they look at a blip of history with World War II and, that's what their whole civilization was based on, that one moment. And when you look at how vast and how many years had gone by, if you look at like just the blips of history that we create, one moment, it's nothing when you stretch it out into hundreds or thousands of years, right? I do think that without the inventions of everything that was listed in this video, we would be one, like, I don't even think people can comprehend what the world would be like if there was only 1 billion people on it.
Yeah, it's really wild to think about that, and then everything that I listed to be like, what would life be like without that? Oh, how would we do this without that? It's pretty crazy.
It is pretty crazy. And now if you look at, I almost feel like we're advancing so quickly and so fast. And unfortunately, information like this, when we look back at our history and we look back at things, it's just, to newer generations and even to us, it's kind of, it kind of gets lost in its gravity because it's all things that we've now been grown up and it's kind of taken for granted.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I've had computers now. I've had these, I have glasses that are AI generated and I could see things and it's telling me, that's a cabinet, that's a microphone, this is a light, right? Like, we have interaction things and there's things that are happening that are incredible advancements in technology. Like, when does it stop? I don't even know, like in 50 years from now with AI, what the world is going to, it kind of reminds me of WALL-E, that movie WALL-E, where all the humans are like in chairs.
Yeah.
We're just floating around. Like, that's where I foresee us going as a civilization. And look, it's really unfortunate that I think vast generations, newer generations are going to look at this history and just think, no big deal. Or, because it's not the norm anymore. It's like, great, thanks, I appreciate you. But that's as far as the appreciation goes. All cool stuff. It is what it is. What do you guys think of this video? I think it was fascinating. Do people care anymore? That's like my question is like, do you feel like the youth of your time gives a shit about and maybe that's why it's so important to relive this and kind of watch videos like this and put that out into the universe instead of what some influencers doing on TikTok or what trends are there today, But anyways, I digress. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry about the banter. I did get immersed in this video, by the way. I got sucked in and pulled in probably about halfway through.
I could feel you.
Like
getting more into it.
I know. But yeah. That's our time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave down in the comments what you thought of this video. And that's it. We'll let you go. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.